I was getting thousands of views per day within 2 weeks of starting this channel. I didn't post in forums, get shoutouts, or use some secret technique. All I did was upload 2 videos and nothing else. Today, you'll learn how to get those results for your own channel. Chapter 1: Breaking the Algorithm. Getting YouTube's algorithm to blow up your channel is actually really simple. Here's how it works, explained by the largest creator on the platform.
If people are clicking and watching, then it gets promoted more. And that's literally all the algorithm does, is reflect what the people want.
It really is that simple. Success on YouTube comes when you make videos that people click on and watch. The hard part is doing it better than everyone else. But based on my experience with 2 successful channels and my research into the methods of the best creators on the platform, I have created a step-by-step process to take your videos to the moon. In fact, your next video will mark that changing point in your channel if you do everything I tell you to. Chapter 2: A Good Idea. Messing up in the idea stage undermines the entire video, which makes this step the most important. Make the video just yet. You'll see why in just a second. Chapter 3: Thumbnails and Titles. You still need to make the title and thumbnail so you can actually calculate the quality of that idea. You see, for it to be a good idea, there must be at least one very compelling reason to click on the video. If you can't figure out a way to do that, then maybe you should watch this video here. Or maybe your idea just sucks. If that's the case, do not use that idea. Here's a video where it's very obvious what the reasons to watch are. For starters, you want to see what liquid sand looks like when it's moving around in a recording. But you'd also like to know how it works and what it looks like to swim in it. And for this video, the reason to watch is that Terraria players love to know about new features, and therefore this video will be interesting because it covers a new feature to the game. So the reason to watch is to learn about the Oasis in Terraria. That is some bullshit. The reason to watch can't require a bunch of rationalization, otherwise it's a really weak reason. Nobody cares about your video until you give a solid reason to watch it, like this. Find for yourself the difference in how enticing these 2 videos are. When it comes to designing the thumbnail, it's essential to make a thumbnail that lets anyone in your niche immediately understand what's going on. You can't rely too much on the title here because most often viewers look at the thumbnail before they look at the title. So don't use a poorly shot photo or an uncropped screenshot. Otherwise, your thumbnail is just too bland and confusing next to all the others. Most YouTubers don't even use a single frame from their video to make the thumbnail. Instead, they take new photos, often piecing multiple together to create an image that most effectively represents the idea of that video. Now for the title, it's the best opportunity for giving a reason to watch. My reason typically comes from titling the video as a question, but it's also a great strategy to instead give extra context about your video. Just make sure that the reason to watch is still clear. Chapter 4: Plan the Script. Remember earlier how Mr. Beast described the algorithm? Well, think of your entire scripting process as your plan for this part, making people watch your video for as long as possible. Even something like a vlog where you've recorded everything first requires you to consider what footage you have and then create a storyboard. Because without a strong strategy to maximize viewer retention, you will lose viewers incredibly quickly. A great way to think about all this is a big water tank with a leak in the bottom. At the start of your video, you're at a full tank, but it drains quickly, and once it's out, viewers start looking for something better to watch. The only way to keep viewers is to do a little refill by giving value to your audience. Say or do something interesting, something important or helpful. Even just make them smile, something like that. Also, be aware that the tank drains at different speeds depending on your audience. Some niches and age groups have an attention span of around 20 seconds, while others can last maybe 2 or 3 minutes. Knowing that, you should spread out your key points of information evenly throughout the video to consistently refill the tank. Start by separating the video into different sections, each with a couple bullet points to list the takeaways. Next, plan out some pockets of dopamine, little edits, montages, or jokes to give the viewer a quick break. Without these, your video flies by way too quickly, which overwhelms the viewer and prevents them from absorbing anything. Chapter 5: Script Writing. Do you remember a minute ago when I talked about that water tank? Well, here is where it really comes into play. Once you start elaborating on the takeaways you just listed, explain them as simply as you can. A 10-minute video that could have been 3 minutes will be so boring that the average view duration will likely be just a minute. But flip this around, a 3-minute video, which is so compact that it feels like 10 minutes, will be so entertaining that the average view duration is likely closer to 2.5 minutes. But that being said, trimming down your video too far actually hurts engagement. It makes it feel really chaotic and kind of soulless. So while your wording should get to the point quickly, it should still resemble the spirit of a natural conversation. So make it feel like you're actually talking to the viewer. They should be an engaged listener, thinking about what you've said and asking questions. If you constantly tell things the exact same way, it gets monotonous. But if you switch it up, sometimes use an analogy or an example, tell a story or ask a question, it makes the video much more engaging. But as you may have noticed, there's now an even bigger problem. You see, with you shortening your videos so much, you struggle to reach that 8-minute mark where the sweet cash comes rolling in. So here's where the really high level stuff comes in. I like to call it valuable bullshit. I first discovered this when watching a Ryan Trahan video about a soundproof room. I was surprised at first that the video lasted exactly 8 minutes, but while watching I couldn't help but admire what Ryan was doing. And by the end of the video, I had learned one of the most crucial YouTube strategies. You see, the duration of that video was not a coincidence. His video could have lasted 5 minutes, but he extended it using valuable bullshit. Check this out.
The creator of the world's quietest room is a man named Steve Orfield of Orfield Laboratories. I'm scared of this man for a number of reasons. Not only does he send 2-word response emails, but also Orfield Laboratories literally sounds like the place a Demogorgon would be hiding in the next season of Stranger Things.
It's quick and subtle, but it's funny, and that gives value to the viewer. Also, it builds a more personal connection to who's watching, which makes them stick around with you for longer. All of the ways that Ryan fluffed up his video added something to it rather than stretched out what was already there. Before we talk about just forgetting all of this and letting AI write everything, we need to talk about the most important part of the script, the intro. If you do not take those first few seconds to meet the expectations people had going in, they will stop watching. So take a good look at your title and thumbnail. What made someone click that? What information, what pacing, and what mood are they expecting? Your entire video, but especially the intro, needs to align with those 3 principles. As for specifically what you say, there is no single answer. You just confirm to them that your video will be what they expected and then immediately start delivering. But please, I am begging you, do not ask for likes, for subscribers, or for money. That is not what they came here for. Now about AI, it is a great tool to help with your script writing. I use it to find better vocabulary, to shorten sentences, and to improve my flow, but I would never use it to write a script. That's because AI is just stupid. It's trained using books and websites and therefore writes kind of the same way, but YouTube videos aren't written the same as books. Alright, sure, using AI is lazy and it messes up the video, but what I'm about to say is even worse. And guess what? You probably do it too. I sure did. Back in my Terraria channel, I would draw out the second half of my script and just kind of half-ass it. While it's true that people are more likely to keep watching the second half if they made it through the first half, they're only more likely to keep watching. But I counted on people staying once they got around to that halfway mark. The writing, editing, and everything else would get way worse. Then I put in an outro that gave credits and stuff like that. It took me a while to learn that there is no such thing as an outro on YouTube. Talk about why I hadn't blown up yet. It's because I was thinking of my channel one video at a time, and therefore viewers looked at my channel the same way, one video at a time. But what if they looked at my channel 5 videos at a time? 10 videos at a time. You know, there is no better way to tell YouTube to blow up your channel than to have people binge your videos. So plan for that. Don't let viewers get bored of you. Keep the second half just as good, and then they're far more likely to watch another of your videos next. Okay, with all of that being said, the most important thing for you to do is to avoid not writing anything because you're just trying to get it all perfect. Writing's a process. It's never going to be perfect the first time. Chapter 6, Recording. So about recording, I actually recorded my first 2 videos on my iPhone and a blue snowball, and the videos actually did really good. What's actually important is to just get as many clips as possible. You can't have one continuous shot of you talking. You need a variety of things for the viewer to look at. For my Terraria channel, I would spend on average 10 hours recording footage just so I could switch the clips every 5 seconds. And yes, it is worth it. The impact on your attention is massive. Chapter 7, Editing. The core of editing is pacing. You see, the style can be whatever you want, but pacing always has to be as fast as possible. To really give you a sense of what it should be, let's look at the bare minimum. A 90-minute nature documentary. This is a very slow-paced genre, yet at a random point in the film, the video cut to 3 different clips in 15 seconds, an average of 5 seconds per clip. While the style was extremely minimalist, just some background footage, music, and a voiceover, the editing maintained a brisk pace. So if this is just about the slowest editing you can possibly get away with, what does that have to say about your videos, which linger on the same clips for 10-20 seconds? And that's not even to mention the pauses that you make while you're speaking. No one wants to see you staring around trying to figure out what you have to say next. Or any part of your video that's just a couple seconds long where nothing's happening, cut that out too. Besides that, the style of editing should match up with the genre of your video and the audience you have. The wrong editing style can really ruin your video. So figure out how the best creators in your niche edit and then learn how to make something similar. Okay, here's the most underrated editing tip ever. Create a variety of how much energy your video gives off. The stark contrast of a hyper-edited section abruptly turning into a mellow A-roll segment forces the viewer to jump back into focus. These changes in pacing keeps the viewer from zoning out. Wait, do you hear that? That kind of like rumbling sound? That's called a riser. Oh, that was a hit. These are just 2 examples of sounds that make the video way more immersive. Just as important are transition sounds, ambient sounds, and some Foley sound. Sound design creates a really nice audio experience, which will help keep the viewers watching for a little longer, so I definitely recommend it. I used to use freesound.org, but now I use Envato Elements. And sound effects aren't the only way you can spice up the audio. Rather than throwing in a couple background songs that kind of work, create a more immersive experience by choosing a larger variety of music. A lot of the pacing and mood of a video comes from the music, so find songs that work really well for what you're aiming for. So yeah, that is the basic process, but for someone like you, I think you want something better, so click here for the more detailed version of all of this.